So welcome to today's session, A Day in the Life series with Women in Automation 2024. This is our last session for this series, and you'll find the recording tomorrow. I'll put the URL in your chat for you. And if you have any questions, please put those in chat as well. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Molly Mencham.
Thanks, Diana. Hi, team. Thanks for joining us today. For those of you who haven't joined, this is our fourth in the series. As Diana said, the others are recorded. Highly recommend checking them out. Today's session is near and dear to my heart because I live in the sales organization within go-to-market. So I will let the team introduce themselves, but we have a mix of both sellers, direct sellers. So we have Erica, who runs enterprise account sales for us in the Ameris. And then we have a couple technical people with us. So the pre-sales side of things, both on the specialist side, and then within the core verticals across the Ameris as well. Again, please do throw questions in the chat. We have a little bit of an outline and we'll jump into it, but happy to take any and all questions. So you can probably kill the slide here, Diana. I'm just gonna have the team start. And Erica was on the slide first. So I'll go to you, Erica. Maybe a quick introduction of who you are, how long you've been at UiPath, maybe a little bit about what part of sales you work in, either vertical or kind of different customer sub-verticals. And then I think maybe just a quick overview of how'd you get into selling and sales in this type of space?
Sure. Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Erica Busey. I'm an enterprise account executive here. I've been here, over 2.5 years, getting close to the 3-year mark. So I'm excited to be here. When I think about kind of, I guess, how I got here, so I've been with very big companies like Citrix and SAP. I've been with some startups. I've been with some VC-backed, some PE-backed, been kind of all over the place. But found my home here just because for me, I love the size of this organization. It's just the right size, able to do a lot and kind of run and iterate on the fly. And I think that speaks a lot to probably, hey, how the heck I got into sales. I started in marketing and I used to do like the really, really large RFP responses and would just watch the sales team come in and take all the glory from all my hard work. And I was like, wait a minute, I can do that. I want to do that. And by the way, they drove way nicer vehicles than I did too at age like 24. So just kind of started into it. And I started in tech sales, probably like 16 years ago now, and just worked my way through. Like I said, started with Citrix and SAP along the way and done a mixture of different kind of tech versions of it, but always SaaS, always software. And I really love it. I think you can find a really big impact to your customer pretty quickly. And you can also help figure out how you can enable them to achieve their priorities through a solution stack, hopefully that you're engaged with and selling.
Love it. I also started in marketing. That's a good theme for those that started marketing and up in sales. Katie, jump over to you a little bit of who you are, a little bit about your journey to UiPath, and then maybe for those of in the audience or watching, a little bit about what is pre-sales and help kind of define that a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Molly. So yeah, my name's Katie Malash. I've been with UiPath about 1.5 years. I'm a senior sales engineer here. I've been in the sales engineering space for, I think 10 years now, predominantly as a sales engineer or solutions consultant. They vary in what they're termed, but role is similar.
Yeah.
And then as well for a time as sort of a strategic like value engineer / I would almost call it product marketing as well. I've always been at very large companies. Adobe was actually the smallest company I'd ever worked for prior to coming to UiPath. So it was a change for me. I started in consulting at Accenture and I spent about 90 hours a week helping to fix the healthcare.gov website. And I was just in war rooms with developers overnight and into the morning. And I was like, this is not the best fit for my skill set and the best fit for my personality. I wanted to be talking to customers. I had a little bit of a stigma around like, is sales going to feel disingenuous or inauthentic to me? Like, what does that look like? But I heard what some of my friends that I graduated from my grad program with were doing at IBM in a technical sales role. I was like, I've got to do it. So I went through their global sales school program and then came out a technical seller, sales engineer, solutions consultant, again, all the same. I really view this job in pre-sales as like the best job you never heard of growing up. And that's exactly how I would describe it. I used to think that I came upon it by accident, but I actually used to stay in from recess in the 5th grade and teach kids how to use PowerPoint. So I think I've
There
been
you go.
SE maybe my whole, I was really cool. I think I've been an SE my whole life. And for me, I just view it as translation. Like, how do you translate technical concepts into, how we help or help companies drive bigger business outcomes, and what does it mean for their business and how does it help them? And we get to solution that and what it looks like. So I love rolling up my sleeves alongside the account team and getting it done. So hopefully that was
Love
helpful.
that. The best job you never heard of. I think that's a great way to describe pre-sales. And last but not least, another pre-sales team member on the technical side as well.
Yeah, hi everyone. My name is Christian DeVito, and I'm an AI ML solution engineer. So similar to Katie, I work in pre-sales as a solution engineer, and I'm on a specialist team dedicated to our growth products, which is kind of emerging products. Specifically for my case, it's document understanding and communications mining. And it's actually really cool to hear other people's journeys because I feel like there's a lot of similarities. And when I think of how I got into pre-sales and solution engineering in this role, I kind of think of it almost as like the Goldilocks story, where she goes in and she's trying out the different chairs, and one's a little too hard, one's a little too soft, and she finds the one that's just right. I started as a software engineer straight out of college, so coming from a computer science background. And there were a lot of elements that I loved about working in technology. But then they had us go on site to show some customers essentially how to use the technology that we had built. And that I realized really like lit up my spark. I loved that customer interaction, but also still being able to be technical. So similar to Katie, I actually went through IBM's Global Sales School. They have a great training program for people interested in transitioning to technical sales. And then was leaning towards, okay, do I go full sales? Software engineering wasn't quite right. And then landed on this like perfect spot in the middle, which is technical pre-sales, where you get to do a bit of both. And that's one of the things that I really love about the role. And then,
Awesome.
yeah, what brought me to UiPath is just the exciting things that we're doing, especially in the AI ML space, really appealed to me when I was looking for my new position here.
Awesome. Love that evolution in that marriage. And how everyone kind of knew it without knowing it throughout their careers. Super helpful. So as we dive into it, I think, sales and pre-sales means a lot of things. No day looks the same. I think there's a mix of internal, external. I think everyone hit on customer facing and solving the problems and translating, what our technology can do for our different customers. So let anyone kind of jump in here and take this question any way you want, like thinking about how you work with your extended teams, and also maybe through the lens of what does a day look like? I'm not going to say a typical day. I know they're all different, but when you think about what excites you, your best day, it could be a customer meeting, it could be building a new product. But what does that look like for each of you? And what does that look like across extended teams as well? So dealer's choice if anyone wants to jump on that.
Sure, I'll go first if you like. So for me, I think you hit it, Molly. Man, every day looks different. And so what I kind of start every day with is my list of priorities, like what I have to do. And I never build it before because, again, the day before is always madness. And no matter how hard I try to schedule myself beautifully, it never works out. So I start every day scratching on a piece of paper, and I can even show you guys what mine is today. Oh, no, you can't see because the background. That's how I start my day. Like
Yeah, a
what
little
my
bit of it.
priorities are, right? Like my little, and it's like hilarious if you look in my office, all these pieces of paper, I probably look like a nutty professor, maybe minus the nutty part or something. I don't know. And so it's, what do I need to get done? And all of that is based on what do I need to do for my company and what do I need to do for my customers, right? And when you find that perfect point where that all aligns, it's awesome. Now, unfortunately, sometimes that doesn't equal the stuff I like to do, right? Like, hey, man, we all have bugs and chasing tickets but you dig through it and you get it. What I think makes me really excited is when you do the right things day in, day out for the customer, for yourself, for the company, then you get to those beautiful points where you're figuring out like, hey, how can I help you achieve your priorities? Like, where can we work together on this like cool new stuff? And you're having these areas where you're all kind of being stretched and challenged. But oh my gosh, that's where like the fun stuff is for me. And that frankly like re-energizes me. So if I'm in a day where it is just grinding and it's taxing and all those things, I keep just reminding myself like, hey, if we get this done, then we get to go back to where the fun is, where we get to have our creative mind and stretch. So yeah, nothing is ever the same, but I try to find different ways to prioritize, or sorry, motivate myself, I should say, and then be very focused on what do I actually have to accomplish today? And just things are going to fall, things are not going to get done. And I get okay with that because I know like I've thoughtfully prioritized the right things as I go along the day. Yeah, I'll stop there.
Super helpful. Love the notebook. Mine is a giant legal pad. So maybe I
got
can get
those
to the
too.
smaller one at some point. I think we had some Post-it people out there. But super helpful. And I think a big part of sales, right? Of catching what's needed for customers, but also driving your accounts, your territory, and driving business for UiPath. So super helpful. Christian or Katie, any thoughts,
Yeah.
takes on that?
I would say, at any given time, I'm balancing like 4 or 5 different sales reps and they all have their own opportunities.
Yeah.
I think I have like 41 opportunities by the end of Q2, which is there's a lot going on and a lot just to keep track of. And so it's what is my process of doing two things, making sure that I'm catching up with them of like what's happening this week, what are the activities that we're tracking for, what's a little bit further out. So I at least have it in the peripheral. And then outside of that, it's how do I protect my time so that with all of the different opportunities I'm covering, I don't show up to a call and I like forget what system of record this customer has and looks bad because we've talked about it. So it's just really creating buffer times the second like a demo gets scheduled or creating that prep time and really blocking it just to make sure that I can, show up best prepared and informed because I'm juggling a lot of different things. But I also love just the flexibility of it too, right? We're working on different projects, different accounts with different personality types. And so you just get to constantly sort of navigate that and find what works. And when it really works and you get to a point with a rep where you've got their trust and they know like how you show up, how you present your style, it's just a really cool relationship. I would say too, is like I oftentimes we'll ask them for feedback and vice versa, and then we adjust. And so maybe the next time looks a little bit different, but there's just so much flexibility in that. I would say the one constant is like me setting the boundary, protecting the time just to make sure that like I have lane for prep and I have lane to knock it out of the park. So.
Yeah, I think that's super important is the bouncing around, especially for the pre-sales team that has a lot of sales counterparts and how you balance that and set those boundaries so you can show up in the best way possible. Super helpful. Christian,
Yeah.
anything to add?
I kind of think of my day or just maybe a week as three main buckets. So external stakeholders, internal, and then I kind of think of my own learning and development as a key component as well. And I prioritize in that order. So if I have anything customer facing, obviously that takes priority, making sure that I'm, like Katie mentioned and Eric mentioned, putting in the time to prep and come prepared for that.
Yeah.
One of the really cool things about being on the growth team is we do a lot of collaboration with other teams within UiPath. So might be doing a webinar with enterprise success this week or collaborating with product the next week or working with product marketing. So we actually have a lot of internal stakeholder meetings as well around those key products that we're focusing on. And then just with as quickly as everything's changing and developing, making sure that I'm carving out and allocating some time to read recent releases, like maybe get hands-on with a new technology, do some training. And that's how I bucket. And I, as much as possible, try to allocate like dedicated chunks of time to each so that I'm not losing energy with context switching. So if I can like look at my calendar and be like, this is 2 hours for customer prep, this is focus time for myself, I found that that works better for myself. So I'm not feeling quite as scattered.
Yeah, that's a good one. There is a lot, emails, Slacks, phone calls, everything interrupting the best laid plans. Awesome. Super helpful to think about how you guys think about your day, kind of the back and forth. So I think you all said, hey, a lot of flexibility, try to establish the strategy and how you go about it. What is, and maybe there's kind of two sides of this. When you think about a customer meeting, and since the, sales and pre-sales is very customer heavy, what is something that is your biggest, oh my gosh, that was the best meeting. Here's what we did, why we did it, and it was just awesome. And then maybe the flip side of it, where something that was a big learning or a challenge or something, that you took away of, wow, okay, we missed the mark and here's what we could have done better. You can pick both, either one. Just curious, any stories from out in the field and customer facing as we think about being that front line for UiPath and for the solutions and with customers. There's all the good and there's all the learnings and stressful times too.
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So I have a quick one for each. So I've always described myself as big S, little e. So bigger on the sales, littler on the e. So when people are like, oh, I'm not that technical, what does that even mean, right? What's required to be a technical person? I'm a technical person. I'm in a technical role, and I'm not an engineer, and I'm not a UiPath developer, and that's okay. And so my superpower is really the strategy that I bring into accounts, and like the strategic piece of working big enterprise accounts with my reps. Like that's my bread and butter all day long. How we can translate, technical concepts and a specific solution to how that impacts a P&L for a business. I will map that out all day long and build that business case, right? And so a lot of my best customer meetings are ones where, and sales leadership continues to say, show up with a point of view, show up with a point of view, show up with a point of view, is helping to create that point of view to bring into a customer for outside in to start our conversations. And I'm happy to always do that because they'll tell you if they're wrong. And I'm happy to be wrong because then we learn, and then it's like, cool, let's talk about what it is. And then we kind of come to this agreement of like, these are the big business outcomes we're tracking towards. We start every meeting follow on with, here's why we're talking. It's because we're getting to here. Here's why we're talking, because it's getting to here. And just that organization and helping my reps do that, I've seen just work really well because it takes a little bit off their plate. And it also feels like they have a value resource alongside of them, not just a technical resource who's also valuable. It's just a different lens. On the flip side of that, some of my worst meetings have been where, as a general SE here, we're expected to know everything across the platform and security and cloud. Like it's endless. And I know that like, I'm never going to wrap my arms around it. There's people on my team that have been here 5 years that have seen every new product get onboarded, that have done all of the enablement along the way. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And I stopped trying to be them. Like I started just being myself and to, yes, continue my learning. But like the worst meetings are the ones where I've gone in and it's just like a technical person playing stump the chump to like impress their boss who's on the call. And it's just asking super nitpicky questions that like, of course I'm going to have to follow up with because they might be obscure. I might not get all the time. And what I've learned to do in those scenarios, which might be helpful for people interested in the role on the call, is just to like sit in the discomfort, sit in that pocket and ask questions of like, some people don't know why they're asking a question, or they're asking it from a performative sense, or they're trying to ask something else. And you're like, oh, you're actually asking me this. Like I just was here and you were there and we got there. So I've just been sitting in that healthy awkward of like asking to understand where it's coming from, which helps make those meetings a little bit lighter, but it can be really hard when you're just like, heck if I know, like, so that's tough when you're the technical person, and it's hard because sometimes, sales managers or people being like, wow, she's got gaps or this. And it's like, sure. And where do I hit it out of the park elsewhere? So, it's just kind of that dance.
Yeah. No, I love that. I think that's really important, especially on the pre-sale side, is a lot of our sales team members love to panic or just react. And, the pre-sale side gets the hot seat a lot of times. So I think
we never, Molly, how dare you?
You nailed a couple of things. I might have even done that in my career a time or two, but I think your approach of sitting with it is a lot of any customer facing role, is just not to react. We all want to fix and solve problems, but to understand where it's coming from. I think what you hit on there is why are they asking, where's this coming from? What is the root cause versus the surface answer? And then the ability to say, hey, I don't know, let's go dig in on this and get back to you. Super important. Anything else to add kind of on the best or the worst learnings or challenges from anyone?
Yeah, I think
Ye-
I'll add, I think the number one thing you can do here is figure out who you are. So I've noticed, like, I have a nervous tick, and this is bizarre, but if I don't know enough, or if I'm not educated enough prepared, I talk too much. And that's so counterintuitive, because you're like, if you don't know what the heck you're talking about, why are you talking more? I can't figure out why my brain does that, to be really frank with you. But like being aware of that, I'm like, oh, okay. If I feel uncomfortable, or if I don't know, then I just and I don't know what's happening. And I can feel it, they can feel it. God, I wish I had a mute button in real life, right? And so those have been the worst meetings. So what I've recognized about is I need to be prepared. I need to understand why we're there. I also try my best to like, hey, make sure we're on the same page before we're even meeting, right? Is your objective out of this meeting the same objective I have? Are we all in the same sense, right? They want to hear a new point of view. We don't have to agree like what that looks like, but just what are our objectives? Is it the same thing? Awesome. And also, am I comfortable and prepared and I've done the work? Because what I found too is I have different buckets of customers. The ones who we have the best partnership with and the ones we go forward the most with are the ones where I'm really in tune to what their corporate priorities are, and I'm able to take it down to where we can help them and we can assist that, and we're showing the tracking. If I don't have that knowledge or awareness, then I'm like, hi, America, you guys want to buy some stuff? You know, it's like super awkward, and then I talk too much. So that for me is something I've learned is like, hey, I've got to be prepared. I've got to know what I'm doing. Got to be able to trace it all the way up to 10K, quarterly business, whatever that is. But also then telling myself it's okay, similar to Katie, like, hey, if I don't know, just shut up, let him talk more and listen.
I think that's great. I think sales and pre-sales is hard, right? You're never going to know the customer's business better than they know it, but you need to know it enough to show how you can help. And so what's that line in discovery and understanding? And I think you hit it, Erica, is partnership and the ability to know yourself. And I mean, Katie, you hit on this too, of where you play, where you don't play, how you bring in maybe extended team members to help with that. Super helpful, and appreciate the honesty. I think a lot of people can relate, Erica. Christian, anything to add on this one?
Yeah, quick thing to add. One thing that I think of when I'm thinking of like a good customer presentation, or maybe one that I could do better, is the amount of time that the customer actually ends up speaking or engaged during the conversation, especially
Yeah.
as the like technical resource. Like we learn about this all day. We do these presentations day in and day out. It can be really appealing to just go in and try to show the customer how much we're prepared, how much we know, and end up speaking 90% of the time. And then at the end, and in not so good conversations, you can just tell that maybe they're overwhelmed. Maybe I just delivered a presentation for an hour that didn't actually hit the mark on what they were looking for. It was only partially on the mark. And so ones that I've considered like excellent conversations is when they're chiming in, giving input, verbally agreeing, or especially elaborating or expanding on something and speaking as much, if not more, than I am during the conversation. It's how I know they're like really engaged and we're probably on a path to actual collaboration. And yeah, that I get really energized when it feels like we're working together to solve something.
100%. Before I came to tech sales and that side of thing, I was a customer. And so I bought from a lot of vendors. And you could tell some people know their stuff and super prepared, but I think you hit it on the head. Sometimes it could be the best presentation, but not what the team needed. Or sometimes you might over prepare, but you end up talking for the full hour with the customer and get more out of it. And that might be more meaningful to the relationship or to the business. So I think a tough thing, again, being that frontline team member for the company is navigating that with the customer and having the wherewithal to pause or to understand when it makes sense to, hey, I'm going to present this at all costs versus, hey, should we actually pivot, or do I need to pause, or it's not about the demo or the presentation. I think that is one of the hardest things in sales and pre-sales to navigate with customers. And it's a continuous learning, right? So that's awesome to hear from you. As we think about like jumping into this a little bit, so we've talked a little bit about the roles and kind of broad strokes. I'd love to understand, and we got to know a little bit about your personalities, I think, if they come out here, which is helpful. But I think some of the questions we've had in other sessions with similar audiences is when we think about an account executive or a sales team member, or a pre-sales team member, what are some of the hard and soft skills? And you've all touched on them a little bit, but when you think about, hey, where you want to continue to lean in and develop or push yourself, or, how you knew when you used to help kids with PowerPoint during recess, like that this was a good fit for the role. If you were to give career advice to either those listening to the recording or to yourself 10, 20 years ago, what are the things that are helpful in the role or important in the role to be successful and to learn about?
I would say the skills are important, but also to follow your curiosities. So which one are you more interested in? And there's not a one size fits all for sales or pre-sales. So not to disqualify yourself because you think that, hey, I'm not good enough at sales to be an account exec, or I'm not technical enough to be a solution engineer. If you have an inherent curiosity about one of those, you can improve and deepen your skill set in each, because I think organization, communication, presentation skills, and then for solution engineering, some curiosity and understanding of technical foundations are important.
100%. Even just how things work, right? And trying to put it together and kind of learning the specifics. It's super helpful. Katie or Erica, anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, now I'm getting in the middle years of my trajectory. No one say that I dyed my hair recently. No, what I've recognized is just being authentic, being who you are, right? I will tell you, if you had me as your sales executive 10 years ago, I'm probably different than I am today because I'm much more comfortable in my skin and I'm much more who I am. I am a goofball in real life, in work life, across the board. And for years, I felt like I had to kind of keep that in or not, be very professional and all these things. And I was stunted, frankly. It was exhausting also being, kind of two different entities. And I really started watching like, hey, the best ones. Who are the best sales reps out there? What are they doing? And it was amazing to me how many different versions there were. But what I noticed, the one thread was they were authentic. They were them. And I think when you're dealing with customers, you're really dealing with people, right? And these people, if you sell them something that doesn't work, it's their jobs. And they need to know you as a human are working with them as a human. They have to be able to trust you. And that's what I think, like, as I've aged and as I've been more and more experienced, is just be who you are, be authentic. And that way too, they'll see your weaknesses or faults and understand, that's Erica. She's really great here. Maybe I don't ask her this, right? A technical question. Don't ask me, but ask me some other stuff, right? And I'll help you. And I think it just makes it a lot easier to approach every day happy, because in a way you're just yourself and you're going forward. And then too, you can start doing some self-awareness. Hey, where are my strengths? Where are my weaknesses? And over time, then you're working on your actual weaknesses, not just like some self-created professional ones that take away from you really improving and, growing.
I love that. And I think I can relate a little bit. I remember when I joined a pre-sales consulting team, and I was confident when I interviewed and got the job. And then I started meeting with customers and I was just mirroring what my leaders were doing. And they are smart, talented people, and I am not them. And my hardest thing is the first few months was so miserable and hard because I kept trying to be them. And the outputs weren't good. My customer meetings weren't good. My presentations weren't good. And then I kind of hit this point where I'm like, well, what if I just did it this way? And kind of stumbled into it when I was so questioning, should I be in this role? Right. And so I think, Erica, what you hit me too is once I found like, oh, be me, right? You can still learn and improve and grow, but you've got to be you. You can't show up as somebody else, even if they have the same role, even if it's your team or your boss or what you see as best in class on, other sessions and learning and in books. That's 100% true. And I think with the wide roles of sales and pre-sales, that's especially true. You've got to find who you are and find how that works for you, and then surround yourself with team members and learnings that support that. So 1,000% agree. And I wish I could give my younger self a little grace in that time period. It's hard to figure out and to trust. And especially like see in the chat, there's some different roles on thinking about joining a pre-sales team or a sales team. And that is really hard and scary. But you have a lot of the core tenets, and it's trusting yourself and learning and growing, I think, is a big part of it. Any other thoughts on kind of personalities, roles, skills from the team here?
I would maybe just add, I see Nina's comment of like what her role is in wanting to move into pre-sales. I've seen some of the best people in pre-sales come from wild backgrounds. Like I worked with a guy that was like a major in choir at Carnegie Mellon, or like a lot of teachers that got burnt out in COVID that transitioned into pre-sales, and they take all those teaching skills and listening skills and different approaches for how to teach somebody, to get to an outcome or to learn something and apply it. And it's just like, there's a lane for everybody here to use their own style. And it's just really stunning. So I always just encourage people, whether they're wanting to make a huge industry or career change or whatever, to consider it. Because yeah, Andrea, you're a teacher. I mean, like we need more of you because you just have those skill sets. Like the software, to me, the technology is a formality. You can learn that. You're smart. You've gone through college, whatever you've gone through, right? You've been lifing your whole life. Like you can figure that out. It's the soft skills, and it's the nature of the inquisitiveness, the curiosity, the solutioning, the being willing, like having the confidence to roll up your sleeves and figure it out and ask questions. That's for me really what it comes down to.
I love that. And I would agree. I think that's the beauty of these roles, right? We hit on the flexibility, and every day is different. You got to be ready for it. You have to kind of plan and herd some cats, being internal and external. I think you hit on, Christian, of it's product, it's sales, it's marketing, it's security and legal everyone's dealing with. But then it's really for the customers. How do you show up best for the customer? Which is another great question in the chat. Maybe we can kind of jump to of strategically kind of thinking about, an account or planning or a meeting or a deal cycle, whatever level, trying to dig in on their needs and how to align solutions to it and how we show up. Any kind of general thoughts on customer account planning, deal planning? I think, once we're in it, it starts to get more specific, but how and where do you start? How do you align as, maybe an AE/SE team or a specialist point of view? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think for me, the first place I'll start is whatever public data there is on that company. And I think hopefully good companies will take what their key priorities are, and that should be funneled throughout the whole organization. So at least at a high level, they'll be aligned. And then you can know, like I have one specifically where one of their key priorities is the best customer experience possible. That's their goal, right? So when I talk to them, everything we're focusing on is around that one key priority. And is it moving the needle or not? I also know they're not going to work with me on certain areas if there's 8 other things that can align to that key priority and move the needle faster and higher than I can. And so it causes me to kind of do some self-reflection too of like, okay, am I creating a big enough impact? And I think that's the second point is where can I impact them? Is it large enough for them to care? And who cares, right? So what are the key priorities? What is my impact to those? And who cares? Who should be part of this meeting or should be a sponsor and go forth? So that's where I typically start when I'm digging into accounts and figuring out like how I think I can engage well with a company.
Yeah, and I would say just sort of my flavor for how I like to partner with my reps is I like to feel that I've done just as much research as they are on their when it's account planning, territory planning time. So things like earnings call, the questions that get asked at the end of an earnings call gives you a feel for what the street's caring about and what they're going to challenge them on. That's like one of the first places I start. I look to see, are there recent like podcasts their leadership's been on, like obviously news, different things. I want to hear from the leaders when they're on video or when they're in podcasts, like what are they focused on? What's like the target on their back for the year, for the next 5 years? Can we align at that level? Can we have that level of conversation when we go in so that we get relegated to higher level conversations versus sitting in a center of excellence over here? In any way I can help, sort of do that. And then how do we put together, whether we have a big presence in an account or not, we have data if we do, we have less data if we don't. And there's an opportunity to always have sort of an outside in perspective. And so I try to start like crafting that a little bit, crafting like, let's be easy to do business with. So like, what's the most logical place for us to start? Where are the quick wins that we could engage in, and just sort of like putting the pieces out on the board, and then like we'll go down what path makes the most sense once we get in there. But I think that's really important in the onset, to know that like my rep feels like I have their back in that, or just a different look in it. And then I see the like discussing strategies before presenting to customers. I mean, best case scenario, you have an internal champion that you can preview a meeting with beforehand, and they'll give you like, oh, this person will be watching for this and that. But you're not always going to have that. So for me, it's just making sure that, I understand as much about them as I do. And when I'm presenting, demoing, no matter what, if I'm talking and sharing something with them, I have an opportunity to continue to do discovery. Then that's really how I think about it.
Super helpful.
Yeah. Sometimes by the time we're engaged as a specialist team, there's already been multiple meetings that have happened previously. So that can be a really big blessing and a curse, because one, if we're able to get all the information from that, we might have a lot of great context going into those meetings. But then on the other hand, if the notes weren't taken correctly, or some of the context fell through the cracks, there's also the chance that we go in and feel repetitive because we're asking the same questions, or basically going through things that have already been addressed. So depending on the amount of context we're able to get, that really helps drive the way in which we're able to prepare. And one of the main things I would say is understanding the audience from a roles perspective. That could just be looking at the LinkedIns of who's going to be joining the call, trying to figure out like when they're interacting with this technology, what perspective are they coming from? So we know kind of how technical to go in the conversations, what areas to demo. Is this from like a developer perspective, or is this a business user perspective? Because those are going to be completely different demos, conversations, presentations. So the more we can understand their point of view and perspective, the better we can hopefully speak to their language and what they're looking for.
1000%. I think specialists probably have the hardest job, right? Like you said, coming in under what you hope is what your account team briefed, but I think also validating with the customer and checking in and having that balance of not asking questions for questions' sake, but building on, hey, what is it they're trying to do? What is it we're trying to do? And how can we help? I think that's a really good place. Specialists on the sales side, specialists on the technical side, I think a lot of times are in that spot that it is catching up super quick and then taking over, and how do you balance that with the customer that's meaningful from them? That's a good question and a tough spot. And I think speaks to a lot about the internal collaboration, which I'd love to maybe understand a little bit how you guys look at how do you work across core sales teams, specialist sales teams, specialists, like before the customer meeting. Maybe that ties back to that question. After all of the customer strategy is how, we show up, or how an account team shows up with a customer. What does it take to get there internally? What does that start to look like?
Yeah, I think, and it's fun for me to like sit here with pre-sales, right? Because like you guys are my best friends. My pre-sales is a gentleman named Nelson, who's like, we're besties. We're polar opposites, but we are besties. And actually, I'm leaving here in a minute to go with him. So it starts with us just chatting. And again, we bring our authentic self, and I'm like, hey, here's my point of view. What's yours? And we challenge each other. And we really come from it from a perspective of, hey, knowing what our value proposition is, knowing what the company that we're trying to work with, where are we at? Where's the right thing? And, I'll come up with some creative ideas I'll think that are great. He'll challenge me and be like, oh my gosh, Erica, you're crazy. It's not going to work because of this. I'm like, okay. And then we just sit there and iterate. And I think it comes from a place of both of us are doing the right steps first. We're educating ourselves, we're figuring it out. And then we regroup. Like I think of Katie saying, hey, I want to do just as much research. That's what I experienced too. We come together and we both done a ton of research, but we have our different perspectives and our different point of views. And then that's where they merge together, and it's like magic happens, kind of, right? Because if me and him can find that central sauce, normally that means we're going to hit the bulk of our audience who we're about to go meet with, or at least have gone down different paths. So when we're in those meetings, we can kind of switch on the fly if they're guiding us that like, hey, something else is much more interesting. So doing the research independently, then coming together and meeting, and it is a team. It's not me. Like, yeah, sure, I probably get my name on stuff, but I make sure it's the whole team. And it has to be that because there is a ton of knowledge. And I'm sure your guys, if you guys are outside of us, have a ton of knowledge. Ensuring each and every person understands their role and criticality in delivering the best results for your customers.
Yeah, I love that. I love that everyone brings something to the table. And I think the more we push each other internally ahead of that external meeting, ahead of getting to the customer, the better it is, right? Sometimes that's hard. And it's tough, especially when you have quotas and deals and your managers are asking what's going on. And there's a little art and science, right? I think sometimes in sales, we love to paint a vision. And in pre-sales, we love to make sure it can become a reality. So I think that tension's good. From the pre-sales side, any kind of strategic prep internally or how you guys approach?
Yeah, sure. A lot of collaboration. Again, just the more information we can get, the better. Like I personally love when people send notes ahead of time so I can just start to like wrap my head around what's been addressed, what's been asked, any previous conversations. And then the collaboration can look so different depending on the opportunity. A lot of times we're working with core SEs, core AEs, and a growth AE. So one thing that I think there that can be really important is making sure everyone understands like ownership. So like divvying up,
Yeah.
I'm going to own this part of the presentation, you own this part, and then going back in and like adding comments and flavor to what someone else has made, but making sure that everyone kind of has something that they're like, okay, I'm taking ownership of this and this is going to be my deliverable. Um, those are some of the main things that I feel like drive towards success.
Yeah, I love that. Clear definitions of who's doing what and then how it comes together. And I think really builds the team is super helpful. And it's hard, right? Every account, every customer meeting slightly different, even if we can build and scale on what we know. It's just kind of continuing to iterate on that. I think is super helpful. I know we're wrapping towards the end here. If anyone does have questions from the audience, feel free to throw them in the chat. We can keep hitting them. A couple things I'd love to end on for our panelists today, though, is what is the thing you wish you knew before you got into this role, right? If somebody had told you or shared with you, what would that be? Then I'd love also to hear, any thoughts that you have learned? We all have different perspectives and personalities. What's one thing you would share for those thinking about joining a sales team or a pre-sales team or just wanting to know more? So you could take either, you could take both, and we can kind of round it out with those maybe. So go for it.
One of the things that was hard for me, especially at the beginning, and still can be hard sometimes, that I wish that I knew is it's okay to not have all the answers. In fact, you're not going to have all the answers. That's kind
Yeah.
of the beauty of the fact that we're in a field that's changing and evolving every day. Like it requires us to level up and continue learning, but there's always going to be questions on a call that come in that you don't know the answer to, and that's okay. And it's also important to find a like mentor or an advocate that can be in the form of a manager. Some of the biggest career growth and learning opportunities that I've experienced have been from a manager or advocate creating opportunities to push me out of my comfort zone in a kind of like safe way of, okay, there's this great opportunity. You're going to go speak at this conference and I believe in you and you can do it. And we can do as many practice runs and prep as required to make you feel comfortable, but kind of giving you that little boost and nudge to expand and challenge yourself. So if you can find someone that will do that in a safe and encouraging way, I think that can be huge from a confidence perspective, career growth perspective.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a big part of it, right? Is one, bouncing ideas off someone and being pushed. And I think you said it in a safe way. One of the things that when I chat with people and that I've learned from some of my mentors is you own your own career, right? There are a lot of people and groups and opportunities to support it. but you have to be willing to ask for some of that. And so I think that's a big part of it, of thinking about a new role, is asking people for 15 minutes for a coffee, for a chat, for connecting with people at conferences and networks. Is that reminder of, yes, everyone's out there, but it's up to us to kind of ask for that and own that career and push that. So love that, Christian, super helpful. Katie, Erica, any kind of thoughts on what you wish you knew or what you might share with others?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've been moving around a bit. My dogs are going crazy. Yeah, what I would share is, when I moved into pre-sales, I really didn't expect at like 25, 26 to be walking into, I covered all automotive, and to be walking to like into executive offices and doing presentations when I still looked 18 and they're all old dudes close to retirement, right? And so it was
Yeah.
challenging because I was trying to earn my stripes while working alongside people that were experts in the industry for so many years. And I just decided to like be small and not take up space, right? Because that felt safer. And so I would just, especially with this, being a women in automation call, is like use your voice, find your voice, keep working away at confidence, and trust that like nobody has it all figured out. Nobody has all of the answers, and just continue to bring yourself and that creativity to the table, right? Like some of my best demos have been when we got a little like off the wall and came in with a unique approach or a story that we wanted to tell. Like I showed up at my first onsite back after COVID with pictures from me as a child fixing up a house, because we were talking to like a home improvement store. And I was like, this is what this meant for me. And this is why I care about this. And they're like, is that you at 6? I was like, yes, I know I look crazy. But it's those types of things that just make it human and make it more real and are going to help you in that like confidence trajectory. So like just keep hacking away at it. And when you get criticism or you get certain feedback, like take what's valuable to you and just work on letting the rest like roll off the back, and keep asking and iterating and doing all those things. Like it's a beautiful, like messy journey. And yeah, I wish I would have just, had somebody at that time that's like, please just own it. Like, please just own where you're at right now and stand really strong in it, because this is not, the pinnacle of all of your learning and experience. It's only going to get better. So just keep moving forward.
Yeah, I love that. It took me a long time to learn that. I think I'm still learning it. I actually have a Post-it for those Post-it fans out there with somebody a trusted advisor that I've worked with on and off in my career was always like, it doesn't matter the title or the role, you be the executive, right? It's not saying you don't have to prepare or can't learn more, but having that confidence and trust in yourself to walk into a room where people don't look like you or your different age or background or role, and to find a way to be that executive in that room. I have the Post-it that's probably got so much coffee spilled on it, it still says be the executive. It is a hard thing to learn. And I love that, Katie. And I think the authentically you piece, Erica had touched on that earlier, but showing up and bringing you to that meeting in a way that resonated versus trying to emulate the others that you weren't, right? You were different. You are different. That's the beauty in it. So I love that. Anything to round us out kind of on this thought here, Erica?
Yeah, Molly, I was gonna say, I'm not gonna give up an opportunity to talk. No, just kidding, sort of. I might say, hey, while you're doing this, keep the door open for your friends. Keep the door open for others. And I'll tell you, when I talked about my journey, part of it was like, shoot, I suddenly had kids. Not suddenly, I tried really hard, okay? It was known. But then it was like, I was such a workhorse until that day. I couldn't be a workhorse. I could outwork anything. And then suddenly, oh my God, I had this baby. I wanted to be a mom, all these things, right? That couldn't be me anymore. That wasn't my defining attribute where it had been for so long. And I looked around and there was no one there who didn't have a night nurse and other things that I was uncomfortable with in my life. And so I then thought back about, oh crap, how many times was I like the proud overworker and I didn't make the safe space for other people who were going through different things and only like had so much. And it took me going through it to go like, holy crap. I was so proud of myself, but good Lord, I didn't help others. And I say that because what makes, I think, it open and available for everyone is just, again, being you and being clear on like, hey, this is me. I can do well. You in a completely different form, you can do great too, right? And trying to help make sure everyone can be their authentic self and their own little attributes, all while driving forward. So never forget the fact that like when you're sharing your little special sauce and you're sharing how you're a little unique and different, what you're doing is you're telling others it's okay to be them too, and you're opening the door for them. So y'all are special, y'all are great in your own way. Share it, put it out there, and it's going to make it easier for everyone else to come along and do the great work as their self too.
Well, what a team we have here. Thank you for that. I think I learned a lot today. I hope the audience did too. Thank you three for sharing. Hopefully the more we do these sessions, the more we can get out there, the more awareness we can drive of, hey, people aren't alone. There are these opportunities. And, we'll see if anybody has any other questions. If not, is there any closing comments from any of you all that you want to share? Anything we didn't get to or we didn't hit on that you really have to get in there in the final minute or two of the call? You got to close for me, sales team?
I'm like, man, I have talked enough. This is that, when I started like, uh-oh, I talked too much. My radar is going off, y'all. But thank you for listening to us. Pre-sales, you're the smart people here. Take it away.
I was just gonna say I'm happy to connect with anybody if they have questions or want to talk or dive into anything more. I'm happy to be an open book as much as possible. And it's nice to connect with some women here at UiPath. It feels really good. So thanks for making my day.
Awesome.
Awesome. Well, thank you all. Thanks to Diana for running and setting this up for us at UiPath, maybe bringing in some external folks. For anyone who is attending our Forward conference next week in Las Vegas, it's for customers, partners, UiPathers. We do have a Women in Automation session where we are getting some customer stories about impact and innovation in the automation space. So we have a financial services customer, a healthcare customer, and then a manufacturing and energy customer going to do some of the similar, hey, what's going on in the world of women in automation? What's good, what's bad, what's hard? So if you're in Vegas, join us. That's Tuesday night. If you're not, we are going to try to do some more in-person events in our offices around the country as well. So follow UiPath online, follow internal channels if you're internal. More to come. Huge thank you to this community. I am always so honored to host and hear more and learn more. So thank you all. Go conquer the world. I know we can do it. And hopefully I see you all in person soon. Thanks so much.